is Aubrey, and I'll be discussing with you today about what drug addiction does to your brain. Hopefully none of you are addicted to drugs, but I believe that we will all come in contact with people who are addicted to drugs, or maybe already are in contact with them. There will be three main points that I'll be discussing today. First, how does someone become addicted to drugs? Second, once they are addicted to drugs, what does it do to the brain? And third, is drug addiction voluntary, and why or why not? To start off, how does someone become addicted to drugs? There are three parts of the brain that drugs affect. First, the brainstem, and this is what functions you to stay alive. It functions your circulation of blood, it functions your breathing, and your digesting. Second, it affects the limbic system, which is all your emotional responses to everything. And lastly, it affects your cerebral cortex, which is all the gray area of your brain. And what drugs affect in this part is your five senses and your forebrain, which is the last thing that's developed in your brain. And what this is your ability to think, plan, solve problems, and make decisions. And so this is the main part that gets affected. And all drugs affect these three things, these three parts of the brain. With knowing that, the first time someone does a drug, it sends an unnatural sense of pleasure to your limbic system. And this tells your brain that you have an excessive amount of dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that tells you that you have joy and hope and everything. And so whenever you do the drug for the first time, it tells you that you have an excess amount of that and that it needs to be cut off. And so your brain stops producing that. And this causes your body to compulsively seek after that drug because you want to feel hope and joy and peace, and that's the only way that you'll feel that now is with that drug. The NIDA website for teens states that you can't predict how many times a person can take a drug before they become addicted, because each person has a different genetic makeup, and the environment also plays a key role in this. And so there's no way to tell how many times a person can take a drug before they become addicted. The next point is, once they are addicted, what do the drugs do to the brain? All drugs are chemicals. So what this means is they cause either an excessive amount of neurotransmitters or not enough. Cocaine and amphetamine, for example, they cause an excessive amount of neurotransmitters. And so what this does is it causes dysfunction in your communication channels. An example of this would be if Hannah is addicted to drugs and I go and whisper something into her ear. It's going to sound like I'm talking to her on a microphone this close to her face, which would be very bad. And marijuana and heroin, they're two completely different drugs and they do different things to your body and everything, but as for the brain part, they do the same thing. They mimic a natural neurotransmitter, and because they're not natural neurotransmitters, this wreaks havoc in your brain. All drugs also affect your reward circuit in your limbic system. Are drugs voluntary? Whenever the first time someone takes a drug, for most people, it is a voluntary behavior. But once they become addicted, it is no longer voluntary. Because once you are addicted to drugs, this impairs your thinking, it impairs how you do things, and mostly it damages your reward circuit. What your reward circuit is, it's in your limbic system, and this is what tells you, even as a child, every age, this is what tells you something is good and it needs to be repeated. Like eating. Whenever you're a young child, you know that eating is good, it's rewarding, and it's something that needs to be repeated. And what drugs do, when they come into your brain, they do the same thing. They tell your brain, this drug is good, repeat it. This dopamine is good, repeat it. And so that's how someone stays addicted to the drugs. And it is no longer voluntary once it becomes an addiction. there is hope for those who are addicted to drugs. There, to conclude with treatments, there are many different kinds of treatments for people who are addicted to drugs. Also, what most people don't know is that once drug addiction takes place, it is now a brain disease. So it has to be treated like a brain disease. And also, most brain diseases and most drug addictions are chronic, meaning they last until you die. And so, just like some brain diseases need to be treated with medication, some drug addictions need to be treated with medication as well. All the opiate drugs, such as alcohol, nicotine, tobacco, they can be treated with medication. Some people are lucky. They can quit cold turkey and just be done with their drug addiction. And I think that is a huge blessing. And some people, they can just go to a rehabilitation center one time, fully healed, and all power to them. But 5 out of 10 people fail the first time they try to quit drugs. And so the most important thing, if you know someone who is addicted to drugs or you come in contact with them in the future, is to tell them if they're trying to quit their drug addiction, never to give up. Just like patients with diabetes, whenever they take insulin shots. Whenever they don't take their insulin shots, this wreaks havoc in their body. And so this tells them, I need to start back up again. I need to take my insulin shots again. It's not the end of the world. I just need to try again, and I can be cured from this. And that's what drug addicts need to do. And they need to be encouraged and helped, because it becomes a mental disorder. And so yes, thank you so much for your time and for listening to my speech about what drug addiction does to your brain.